My name is Linda Hitchcock. Let me introduce myself. I have been doing college counseling for over 30 years now. I worked for one of the top tier schools in Montgomery County Public Schools, and I've also been doing private counseling through Everest. So before that, I was I did I read applications for Clemson University. So I have quite a bit of experience with reading applications and helping students. So tonight we are going to learn about how to build a list. If your son or daughter is not in 11th grade, still listen. I mean, obviously you're here and I want you to listen, but some of this may not pertain to you now, but it certainly will over the summer. It could over the summer because lots of people go on vacation and and they like to go see visits in colleges. So definitely a time to look at everything. So we will move into our presentations. So when you're looking at a list of schools to consider applying to, there are some definitely things that you want to do and things that you don't want to do. And I'll dig into that. But you want a school that a student is really enthusiastic about, like if they're looking at a parent's alma mater and they're like, oh, I've been to the games at this stadium or whatever, I've been to the campus before, they really seem to love it, then obviously that probably should be on the list. To me, the biggest component that's on this list is debt. So how much are you willing to spend, mom and dad? How much are you asking your son or your daughter to take out a loan for? This is a huge, huge thing. I beg of you, please don't put schools on a list that are $75,000 a year and they give no money, no merit money, no scholarship money, nothing. And there's plenty of schools out there that do not. They base it all on financial need. So if you know the finances are a big piece of this, then please look at the school's price tag before sticking it on a list. I cannot tell you how many emails I'm now receiving of students that have been admitted to a top tier school and mom and dad said, no, you can't go there. So now we're back on to second tiers and what can be done. So do that now before you even start going to see schools, because you go you go to California and fall in love with University of Southern California, and it's got a price tag of $68,000 a year. So when they give no merit money, zilch. So this is a huge component. So that's noteworthy or not worthy. The other thing that's worthy is students where they're going to be accepted based on their academic record. Now, for some students, it's a little difficult to know that, especially if they don't have test scores yet. However, you can start building a list or looking at schools now, and then again narrow that list down. So these are the things to look for. You'd like to have a school that if your son's interested or daughter's interested in engineering, that they have an engineering school that could support your child's interest. They also like if they're into art or they're into drama or whatever their extracurricular activity is, you would like to have a school that's going to support that as well. So I tell it depends upon where your family and your friends have gone. But, maybe that's not the school. Again, I've had a lot of parents that have gone to a school and the kids are like, no, 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 I don't even want to look at it. So don't put it on the list. So that's kind of where to start. Okay. And then let's move on to the next slide. Okay. So what influences this list? I touched on that previously. Number one, absolutely number one besides finances is this. So I'd say they go hand in hand. Your child's GPA. And what I mean by GPA, and please listen to me carefully, this is a GPA of core classes: English, social studies, math, science. They do look at foreign languages, especially if you're going into international relations, but they're not looking at PE. They're not looking at yoga. They're not looking at, a foundations of art class. So all those need that GPA for those classes need to come off of when you're calculating a GPA. Take those classes off because they are not factored in to when a school looks at a GPA. Very important. Okay. So number one is what classes they have taken, what the rigor is of the class. Did they just take all honors, or does the school offer IB? Is it a magnet school? Did they take AP classes? These are all very, very important things. And for the rigor, you want the rigor to maintain. So if they are in an AP English class now for junior year, they need to stay in the next AP English class for senior year. So you want that rigor to continue. So again, like if they're in an AP BC calculus class now, they should not be going back down to math and statistics. That's a way of level down. So you want to continue to keep that academic rigor important. So again, test scores, there are so many schools, and I just forget the test optional anymore because quite honestly, schools are looking for it. So many schools have come up, and we will see even more after May 1st that come back and say, we are not going to be test optional anymore. And again, what interests your child? What major are they interested in? If they don't have a major in mind, then look at schools that have a school that you come in, and how are they going to help your child determine what they want? What do they do for undecided students? Do they have a program for that? What their dreams are? Do they want to go to med school? Do they want to get an MBA? These are all things that influence the list. The focus in your drive, your son or daughter's drive, how much do they want to go to a four-year college? Are they focused and ready to go? And then again, priorities change between if you've got a junior. Sometimes I see those priorities right now as one thing, and then I see them change totally by August. So it really does depend. So during your active list building, obviously, there's a lot of research you can do on your own or your son or your daughter. There's tools within Montgomery County Public Schools that help going into the Career Center. Again, a lot of research, which we will go into. And I talked about post-college priorities, how much debt is important. And will your degree help you get into the next degree? Okay. All right, let's move on and we'll talk a little bit more. And I get this question a lot. Well, what if I don't know what I want to study? Okay, well, there's a lot of ways to find it out. Take a personality test. We'll send at the end of this, we'll send a resource list that has some personality test resources, free websites that you can look at. Like, again, what do they want to major in? Big thing. If your child says, well, I really don't know, then maybe kind of have them do an internship or a give back to the community type of internship or a job that they might like. Volunteer is very good. Summer activities have become a big thing. So rather than, traveling and doing wonderful things, and don't get me wrong, love to travel, but if your child doesn't have a job, they should be volunteering or doing something that's of interest for them to gain experience and also to give back to their community. So whether it's, again, a job or some summer program that your child might want to, The more they can explore in this area, the better off they are, whether it's now, whether they're a sophomore or they're a junior, there's still plenty of time. If your school has if they're into engineering, does the school have an engineering club? Do they have a business club? Do they have an art club? Do they have, a psychology club? These are all things to look at as well to see how active and how they can enhance their learning about a specific major. All right. So let's see. What criteria do you use? Again, GPA, costs, these are all things we just talked about. Sports and extracurriculars are areas that it depends upon your child. If they're being recruited by a school, then that's a different story. They obviously care about sports and you want to make sure that's on there. But extracurriculars, I had a young man who absolutely loved Formula One race cars. One of the schools that he ended up going to had an extracurricular for a race car extracurricular. It was through their engineering department, but it was all about race cars and building them. And he was so excited. So I know that was one of the things that made him decide which schools to even apply to. Think about this. Geography is extremely important. What part of the country does your child want to be in? And we'll get into that in just a minute. All right, let's see what else we've got here. Sorry, I am. Okay. Let's talk about college types for just a minute, because a lot of times families don't know everything that's out there. So liberal arts colleges tend to be smaller. However, they tend to be a wider range of majors that they offer, because they tend to combine them. So the child in a liberal arts school will take math every year, science every year, English every year, and social studies every year. So it makes them very well-rounded. I just read an article, 61% of the CEOs in the country graduated from a liberal arts school. And they start their major right away. So they walk in, yes, they have preliminary requirements that they have to have certain classes. However, they walk in starting with knowing what their major is and going into that major and doing things right away, instead of a big university is normally you go in and you take your prerequisites. The first 2 years and the second 2 years, you are now in your major and you start working on whatever your major is, whether it's teaching and you do your practicum, or whether it's business and you start taking the professional business classes. It just depends upon the school. So if that's something that your student is a real hands-on student and wants to get into their major right away, they may want to look at a liberal arts school. Universities tend to be bigger, obviously they don't really offer more majors, I have to be honest with you, as liberal arts schools offer a lot of majors. But they just tend to be more degree offerings. That I will say, they tend to have combined programs where you could get your bachelor's and your master's all at once. So universities tend to offer a little bit more than that. There are specialized schools like art schools, like I'll give you an example, Maryland Institute of Art in Baltimore. That's a specialized school for art. And there's definitely specialized schools for single sex or religion or an HBCU. There's many of them out there. So they're specialized if that's the area that your child is looking at. And then another area that's growing rapidly are vocational schools. And that's if your son or daughter said, well, I want to be a chef, or I want to run a restaurant, and I want to go into hospitality management, or I strictly want to be an astronautical engineer. These are things that technical schools and vocational schools offer. So another area, if you want to explore that, they're out there. So Rochester Institute of Technology tends to have a lot of technology and engineering classes. So there are a lot of options out there other than the Big Ten. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Again, we've gone through this before, but I will tell you this is why it's primary is affordability. Second, what type of school do they want? We just went through them. Liberal arts, big, huge university. What do they vocational, etc. The size of what they want. So Ohio State, 42,000 kids are on that campus every day. A lot. You got to look at housing for that. You got to look at class sizes. You got to look at how easy it is for them to get their class. So again, huge schools, size, does that matter? Does your child want to be sitting in a class with 400 other kids in a lecture style class? Some kids, doesn't matter. They're like, yeah, sure, it's fine. But some students have chosen big schools and found out this was not what they wanted and end up coming back home, going to Montgomery College, and then redoing their list altogether. So the size matters. And then location. I can't say this one enough. How far away do you want your son or daughter to be away? How far away do they want to be? Okay. Do you have the money, or is it in the budget plan if they go to a California school to fly them home if they get homesick or for the holidays? That's a big factor to take in. When my daughter was looking at schools, she wanted to go to California. I said, then that price tag is on your head because I don't have the money to pay for that. So obviously California schools came off. So again, distance is a big, big factor. Location, as far as you want a city school, do you want to be in this smack dab in the middle of a city where, you have fire engines and police cars and lots of traffic? And do they want that? Is that what they want? Or would they like more of a rural setting, kind of that they can have their space and get to explore, but it's not in the city? Or do they want a school that has a city available, like Maryland, but it's not in the city? So a suburb school, and there are plenty of them out there. So again, affordability, type, size, location, distance. Major can play a big role. However, I don't believe that it is the biggest factor, but I do think that it definitely has, especially if your child doesn't know, then major's not a problem. But if they do know, then yes, that's going to be a factor to look at. Okay. Let's see. Let's move on. Okay. Having a balanced list. Okay, this is where you start looking at your child's academic record. Okay, you look at the academic record and their test scores. Are they probable? Is the average student that goes to this college or accepts this college, is your son or daughter within that range? And there's an easy way to find out, but you want to look at that. And a lot of schools do publicize that information. So they will tell you that we look at the students that are in the top 10% of their class. And you're like, well, how do I know if your child's in the top 10%? Well, if they've got a 4.0 in unweighted, okay, and in their English, social studies, math, and science classes, then they are probably in the top 10% or top 20. So probable is going to be based on their academic rigor and based on their test scores. That's a probable school. Okay. Bottom line, that's it. Those are the two factors that look at it. Yes, they look at extracurriculars. Yes, they look at, what they're doing outside of the classroom or inside of the class, or excuse me, inside school and clubs. Yes, they look at it. However, that is not what's going to get your son or your daughter admitted. Okay. That is a factor that goes into it, but it is not a determining probable cause for your son or daughter to get into school. So please be aware of that before, again, sports, different story, because if they're being recruited, then that's a different story as far as GPA and test scores go. So again, a recruited athlete is a little bit different. And I mean recruited. So some students are already being courted now and already have had an offer in front of them. Some don't. So again, but those probable schools, academic rigor and test scores, most important. Possible schools. So some people call probable safety, and some people call possible target schools. And target is where your scores are within range of what they're looking for and what their academic rigor is within range. So those are target schools. You may be a little bit lower and have not as many, not as the best top tier test scores. However, you still have a good test score and good GPA, and that's a possible school. Okay. Unlikely. Highly selective. Highly selective. I believe, and Jeremy can correct me if I'm wrong, because we try to keep track of this. So a lot of the Ivy Leagues were their 4% admission rate. They get an enormous amount of applications. Northeastern this year, 84,000 applications, 84,000. And they only need 3,000 to fill a class. So that's a lot of kids that are not getting accepted. So unlikely are reach schools. I tell students that it depends upon who you are, depends upon your background, but reach schools are schools that have a very low admission rate. Okay. All right. There is a thing on here, start early. The earlier you can start, the better off you are to narrow that list down and to look where you are academically. So now is the best time to look. You've got spring break coming on, so it's a good time to start looking at a list. All right, what do we have next, Jeremy? How many schools? I get this question so many times. So right now, I would start that list being pretty large, okay? So anywhere between 15 to 20 schools does not mean that you are going to apply to that many, because that's a lot of schools to apply to, a lot. So, but right now your list should be pretty big. And then you can start looking at other factors that go into it. Again, cost, all the other things. And then that list can narrow. Once you start doing some college visits, I assure you some of these schools will come off that list. Or you'll find out that there's no merit aid, or you'll find out that they don't really have the extracurriculars that your son or your daughter are looking for. So again, the list can start out very large, but by the summertime and you started seeing schools, then the list can narrow down to 10 to 20. By the fall, I try to tell my kids, especially when they're in my class, my workshop, because it's a lot of work to apply to 15 schools. You're talking at least one main essay that's required. And I'd say Jeremy can help me out because we do a lot of essay work together, but I would say that almost every school has an extra essay that they're looking for, whether it's 250 words or 500 words. There's an extra essay that they're requiring students to complete. And
I would
that's
say, I would just say the more selective the school, the more essays you're going to face.
right.
Anywhere from one to some schools maybe have like six.
Yeah.
Really, they can be 100 words, it might be 250 words. The more really selective schools, you're looking at maybe 500 words or more per essay. When you're thinking about, 10 schools that your kid's applying to, that really adds up and it takes a lot of time. So that's something else you need to build into when you're considering what they're applying to, um, you know, especially the top tier ones. But even, lower tier schools, you're going to see them asking for these supplemental essays, because that's really how they're weeding out whether or not the kid wants to go there, whether or not the kid's engaged with the school and that sort of stuff. So the schools are using that as sort of the way of whittling out their candidates to see if they've spent the time doing the research and if they're aligned with the school. So yeah, expect to spend some time writing essays this summer and the fall.
Yes, for sure. Um, Even some schools have short answer questions, and they made the kids can look at this and go, this is so easy, but it's not as easy when you start to sit down and really think about them. So 15 is a lot of schools. So the list should be anywhere between that. I just don't recommend that much. And again, I sit down when I'm teaching the class in the summer, I sit down with the kids and we look at essays and I go, is this what you want to do? This, that you're busy in the fall, everywhere from, September all the way through January. Some deadlines aren't until January. Is this what you want to do, is spend all of your fall of your senior year writing essays? So again, something to think about, but it starts large, ends up not being 20. So I assure you. All right. And also, here's another factor on that list: cost. Okay. Every application, I'd say 90% of the applications cost money. So at $75 an application, plus to send test scores at $15, you're talking almost $100 per application. So when you start trying to have 20 schools on a list at $100 a application, it's quite a bit of money that will add up for you, mom and dad, or again, if your child's paying for it, it's a lot of money to consider to spend on that many schools. All right. Let's see. Okay. Resources for research. And as I said, do your research. Naviance, every school in Montgomery County Public Schools has Naviance. There are great points about Naviance. There are some that aren't so great. However, it's a great resource to go into and look at schools in one website. So you type in the name of the school, it comes up, it gives you information about what majors they have, it tells you about location, it tells you about how many students applied from that school, how many students were accepted from that school, what the average GPA was from the students that were accepted at that school. Because please remember that your colleges look at the content, the students' content in regards to their high school. So again, how many APs does the school offer? What classes do they offer? What do they have? What's the average scores of the students that take APs? There's a lot of information that a high school must give a college to for them to look at your student as an individual based on the content of their high school. So Naviance is a way to find that out. The U.S. Department of Education has a great site. You can look at how many students graduate from the school. What's their retention rate? Do kids stay there or do kids go and come home? So that is another great resource for you. The school has something, it's self-reported, it's called Common Data Set. If you look up a name of a school, every school has to have it. So if you type in University of Connecticut Common Data Set, you will open it up, it'll ask you what year you want, and you will look at first year students. Okay, the Common Data Set has an enormous amount of information on it. It will tell you how many professors teach there, how many come on, Linda, part-time professors there are. They will tell you the size of the classes. They will tell you how much money the professors make. It will tell you everything you want to know. But the thing that you want to look at is you want to look at what their majors are that they offer, and you want to look at their freshman class and what they offer. Because that freshman class data will tell you the average GPA that of students that were accepted. It will tell you how many applied by female, by male, or by non-gender related. They will tell you that. They will tell you, are they white? Are they African American? Are they Asian? Are they Do they not say? It will give you every detail that you want if you search through it. Majority of them are about 40 pages long. So there's everything you want to know in a common data set. Search engines, obviously Google's a good search engine, but there's other ones that I really like. So, and again, just depends upon what you're looking at, but there are a lot of them out there, and you can look. But to me, the best one is Naviance. That's a great search engine. College and major rankings. So I always we put this on the list, but I kind of tell parents, US News and World Report pay their professors to fill this report out. So you're getting a biased view of what US News and World Report. And if you notice, the top school always is one of the Ivies. Well, it's going to be just because of the difficulty of being admitted. So, and that's one indicator that they use for the US News and World Report. So you can look at them. I'm not sure they're always the best, but they are a resource. And again, go to I always like to tell students to go look at their social media, go look at their clubs that they have, Instagram. Schools don't tend to use Facebook anymore. Kids seem to use Instagram a lot. When you go to their school, pick up a newspaper. There's a lot of information out there that a student can find. Personal references, go into the high school career center. Every Montgomery County Public Schools has one. They have college visits that come in there. They're the ones that set up the college fairs. I believe there's the college fair that will be in April for all seniors that are, all juniors that are out of school. So make sure your son or your daughter looks at that. School specific contacts, your son or your daughter knows somebody that attends that school, certainly reach out to them, ask them, what do you like about it? What do you not like about it? Is it easy to get your classes? How is study abroad a possibility? All of those things. Have your son or daughter really ask a lot of questions. When you go to visit the schools, you can ask the department heads. There are a lot of some colleges right now. I follow a group, and there are a lot of colleges that are presenting at hotels. And I saw like 5 of them in Montgomery County recently that they will be at, hotel, and they'll have a presentation regarding their school. So go see it, go talk to them. They're very happy to help you. You ask family or friends, coworkers, did you like that school? Coworkers are great, especially if your son or daughter is doing an internship. Ask them, where did you go to school? Like, where did you go? How did you get your degree? What was the outcome? These are all great questions to ask. Okay, let's see here. I'm looking. All right, let's move on to the next one, Jeremy, for me. Okay. Spring break's coming up. I highly encourage you. I cannot express this enough. Go visit schools. Go visit them. If your child's got California schools on there, obviously, and it's a hardship to go visit California, then at least do an online tour. Okay, do a virtual tour. It's very important. I cannot tell you this right now, because before you even start planning a trip, have your son or daughter do a virtual tour. Because if they don't like it, take it off the list. Okay, they can get an idea of what they like. But go visit schools. Spring break's coming. Okay, some of the schools might be closer. I know the kids have some days off in May, so go see these schools, and that way you can really help finalizing that list. You had to have 135 days before Common Application goes live on August 1st. And yes, your son and a lot of people will say, you can go in and fill out the Common App now. And yes, you can. Child can go in and start filling out their name and their address and some of the information, but there's quite a lot of information that they cannot fill out now. a lot, and they cannot look at what the college essays are going to be, the individual school essays, because the individual schools don't upload their individual application until August 1st. So there are some things that can do, but 227 days doesn't seem like a lot, or it seems like a lot right now. But by the time November 1st comes around, which is deadlines for 80% of schools, then it's not that far away. Okay, so again, make that plan where you want to go, how you're going to get there, when to do it. Here's another tip, and I'm going to tell you this, it's not on a slide. Some of you may try to be signing up for tours now online, and they're telling you they're full. Okay, I've already had parents contact me and say, it says the tour is full. Okay, still go to that school, but get there a little bit before the tour starts, okay? Because they always save space in a tour for, people that don't sign up. So even if it's on your plan and you want to see it, don't just immediately discount it and say, no, we can't go there. Go there half an hour before the tour, sign up. They promise you they'll take you. Okay, it's my little bit of tip. So, all right. Again, college visits, and I apologize, I said the same thing over and over again. Do a self-guided tour if you, and here's the thing, some students will get there and they'll go, I don't really like this school. Well, still do a self-guided tour, because you don't know, maybe at the end they're like, well, it wasn't that bad. But sometimes your child can get there and look at the school and go, no way, I don't even want to take the tour. Great, take it off the list, right? And it happens, it really does happen. But to prepare for that, a virtual tour will help. Try to plan them, when you're driving south and you've got 5 schools that are in the south, try to plan them so you can hit them, and I'd say a college visit, depending upon how much your son or daughter likes the school, will depend upon how long you stay. I'd say a tour, the average tour is maybe an hour, sometimes not even that long, just depends. So I'd say an hour to 2 hours. So if you have one in the morning and one in the afternoon, you can possibly be 2 in a day. It just really depends. If your child's not sure they like it, then do a drive-through beforehand or get out and look. And then if you're really interested in the school and it's not that far away, then go back and do a tour. But again, a tour is very important. And even if they're, again, close, it's still important. Demonstrated interest at this point means a lot. And a school may not say that it does. And I've had this question proposed to me as well. How do you know if demonstrated interest is important? Well, that common data set will tell you that. However, if you show demonstrated interest in my campus by coming to the campus to see it, by interacting at a college fair with me, by reaching out to the admissions representative to ask questions or to say, thank you, I visited your school, I really liked it, or to do there are open house days, excuse me, there are open houses at the hotels that are available, and you show some type of demonstrated interest, it's going to make a difference. I promise you. Young man who just emailed me yesterday, day before, was in my class, took my class last summer. He at the time of the class, he had not visited every school. However, he told me in his email that visiting schools was so helpful for him, and he ended up taking some off his list, and he gave me the list of where he attended or where he got in. So, and luckily enough, this young man did very well with choosing his schools of, possible target and reach, and he didn't have that many on his reach list or his unlikely list. He ended up getting into 11 schools. He applied to 12, he got into 11. So that's what you want. You want your child to have a big wide range of schools that they're going to get admitted to. Another student, unfortunately, who applied to 18 schools, which I advised not to, okay? She got into 4. And the reason that she didn't get into more than that is because every school on her list was either a high possibility, which again, or reach. And now she's very disappointed. And now she wants to look at schools that have an April 15th deadline so she can apply to more schools. So this is something to look at. And college visits are important and that demonstrated interest because this child showed no interest whatsoever to certain schools because she was too busy. So again, a big factor. It's my soapbox, and that's what I'll say. Okay. Sure you're tired of tired of hearing that one. All right, we'll move on. Scheduling and timing, I went over that. Visit whenever you can, even if it's off season. I assure you, they still have people there. They still are giving tours over the summer. Yes, it may look a little different. However, if your child really loves that campus, then you're still going to apply. At least they've been there. They see what the campus is about. They look at the goals of the campus because a lot of colleges will have a lot of things posted when you walk around and look at the school. Again, pick up that newspaper, look what they're posting. Do they have scholarships they're offering for freshman students or sophomore? What are their activities on campus that are through the summer? Do they have summer school? These are all great things to learn if you go off season. But scheduling and timing is certainly up to you. And again, my little tip, go anyway, even if they say that the tour's full. And you can read all this information. And they register through the college admissions site. That's where they register. There's a little note here, not the parents. Please have your son or daughter do this because you don't want that visit to be in your name or your child. You want that child's email to be there. So not a parent's email because they'll know it, I promise you. So make sure to have your son or daughter sign up for that because there's also some information that they're going to ask, which you may not know. So you kind of want to make sure that, you're taking your son or daughter are taking the lead on this. And travel costs, we talked about that. And again, how long they're in the car. Here's another one for you. When we started looking, my daughter was like, oh, I want to go to South Carolina. I was like, okay, we're going to drive. So we get to Richmond, Virginia, 2 hours, 2.5 hours away, right from where I was living in Montgomery County. And she looked at her father and I and said, how much further do we have to go? And I was like, never mind. She was not a geography student. She didn't really know the distance of things. And I was like, we have another 7 hours to go. She was like, oh, this is way too far. And I was like, oh no, we're going. Doesn't matter. So just the distance is a big factor. And on this slide, you'll see wildfires, hurricanes. Hurricanes are a big thing. Tulane University, I hate to say it, but sometimes they evacuate more than once a year. So I've had kids go there and I always text with their parents saying, I hope your child's okay. And it's not just Tulane, but Florida schools, look at the Florida schools. They had it too. So many parts of the region, Michigan. So again, Wisconsin, weather has a lot to do with it. So again, all these things you're going to look at, but your scheduling and timing obviously is going to have times to do with that as well. Okay. Come prepared. Okay. When your son or your daughter, or even you, mom and dad, when you visit a college, obviously they're going to give you a little bit of introduction into what the school offers and what they're looking for in candidates and, plenty of information. I would tell parents and students to write them down. What's important to them? Okay. What's important? Are going to the games that important? Are sports that important? Then they need to ask how easy it is to get a ticket to the game and be seen on ESPN screen. If that's what your child or son wants, right? And that's important to them, they need to know, because some schools, only juniors and seniors are allowed to buy tickets for in stadium. So if that's a big factor of going to a school, find that out and ask that question when you go. Okay. Who is the person that's going to be reading their application? Are they read by regional section just for the region? Are they read by an individual person? Find that out. Okay. Find out about looking at recalculating GPA. That's another big factor. Do they give credit for honors classes or do they not? Do they give a full credit like Montgomery County Public Schools does, or do they only give a half? So if your child got an A in an honors class, normally that consists of a 4, but in Montgomery County, it comes out to a 5. But some schools do not give that extra weight to an honors class. Some don't. So you need to ask, do they recalculate GPA? And what are they looking for? Very, very important question. What are the activities on the weekend? Are there, are there things to do other than being in a fraternity or sorority? If that's important to your son or daughter, great. But if it's not, and that's all there is, then that might be something to look at. How expensive are these fraternities and sororities? I happened to luck out. My daughter went to a small school. The sorority fee wasn't much. I have a goddaughter that went to Maryland. The sorority fee was $3,500 a semester, not a year, a semester. So it's quite a bit of money that you're adding on top of tuition and other things. So again, ask these questions. Very, very important. Keep track of it. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But go and when you go to these visits, ask these questions, write them down. How many students are admitted from the state? So here's another great example. UVA, 85% of those students must come from the state of Virginia. It is mandated by the land grant school, which is UVA, that they take that many from an in-state school. Same thing with North Carolina. They must take a certain amount of students from the state. Ask that question. It's going to be important at the end of the day and being admitted to that school. Ask them. They're going to tell you when you go into that visit. Ask the students when they do the college tour and you're talking to the student, ask the student, what do they like the most about the school? And if they could change something, what would it change? Okay. Important things to know. They'll tell you. Okay. All right. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Let me say one more thing. Are there a lot of commuters that come to the school? It could be, 30,000 kids, but 5,000 of them don't live on campus, or 10,000 of them don't live on campus, and they drive there or they take a bus there. So another thing is how many commute. They call them, some schools or some people call them suitcase schools, but I will tell you there's probably about 5,000 kids that go to Maryland that literally take a bus from Montgomery County to get there. So they don't live on campus. So that's something to think about. I'm sure that 43,000 kids don't live on the Ohio State campus either, and some could be commuters. So I would ask that question. And then when you go, explore the town they're in, okay? You look at it, does it look like a dump? Does it look like a great little town to have, a lunch or dinner or breakfast, or what does it have? Mom and dad, does it have a hotel that's close for you to stay in when you go visit? Are you driving a half an hour to get to a hotel, or do they only have one hotel within the little town? which I will say there are plenty of little schools, or it's not little schools, but there are plenty of schools. One of them is Purdue in West Lafayette, Indiana. I think there are 2 hotels in the entire town of West Lafayette, and you have to drive about 20 minutes to a half hour to get to a hotel. So just keep that in mind when you're going to visit your child that is attending there. Just a little bit of, things to think about that you sometimes you don't think about when you're there. Okay, let's move on. Let's see here. Contacts. Build a network at each school. So first level, your representative, who's going to read that, that recommendation, excuse me, who's going to read that application. And again, some college reps, when you go to a college fair, they will send an alumni, they will send a student. Okay, so even at a college fair, they may not meet that representative. However, who did they meet? Pick up their business card, find out, ask them questions. The second level could very well be, again, the admissions regional team. When I worked for Clemson, that's what we had, was a regional team. I didn't always read. In fact, I never read applications from Montgomery County because I lived in Montgomery County. They would not let me read them. And being biased, because that is the town that I live, or the county I lived in, obviously I could have been biased based on the high schools that I knew. At the time, I didn't have a son or a daughter in a high school. However, I still knew who they were. So they did not let me read them. So something to think about when you go, who's reading my application? Okay. The academic dean, let's say you, again, you go and you love the psychology and you met with the academic dean in charge of the psychology department, or you met with the academic dean in the pre-med department or the art department, or whatever that department is that you met an academic dean. Get their name, write it down, keep that contact. And because it's important. Talk to, again, most of these are going to be academic deans. Financial people, mom and dad, you're probably going to be the ones that are going to be dealing with the financial aid officer before your child's admitted. Find out who they are. Get this information now. They will help you. They will answer your questions. And if you're going on a college tour, get student's name. Send them a thank you note. I promise you, all these things really make a difference. Let's see, ask the right questions. Follow up. Every one-on-one contact, again, makes a big difference. Demonstrated interest. And maybe you don't know who to talk to. I get lots of emails all year long from students and parents saying, how do I know who to talk to? And if it's not something that I can easily find on their website, I will dig until I find it, or I will call my contact because sometimes I have individual contacts at school and I'll call them. Most of the time I can get you an answer, but a lot of the information is right on their website. They're pretty good about putting it all in there. But I tell kids, get a binder, put these contacts, their business cards, or write down their information, put it in your phone, take a picture of their business card, but you want it. Okay. That's what's most important. All right. I think the next one is what to keep track of. I think, Jeremy, is that right? Our next slide, post tour. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful habit to get into. You go see the school. Your son, your daughter has one opinion, you have another. Okay. Get together, look at them. Your mom and dad might pick up on something that your son or daughter never saw, and vice versa. So talk about them. Think about them. Does it check off all the boxes? Is it affordable? Is it a school that you're going to get into? Is it what you liked you saw? All those things that are important. Is there something that you really didn't like? Mom and dad, what did you think? Is this something you could live with? These are all really important things. I have a lot of students that go home and start after they've seen a tour. I know Jeremy's daughter did this. And Jeremy, you can pop in here anytime. My daughter was a little like, oh, I'll just go when, like, oh, I'll just, I'll remember it on my own. And then she ended up not remembering anything. So again, this is a very important thing, but the more you write down, the more information you have, the more notes you take, the better off you're going to be. You'd be surprised at the note that mom and dad, you might have noticed, and your son or daughter might have noticed. And at the end of the day, when you're trying to make a decision on where they're going to go to, that's when some of this information is going to be really helpful. Like, okay, now I can really compare them. Now I've been on a visit. I've gotten into 3 schools or 4 schools. This post tour debriefing and all the notes that you took, go back and look at them. Look and see, wow, you're right, I forgot about that when we visited Indiana. Oh, okay, then let's put that on the pro list, right? So all of the information that you have is going to help you at some point, whether it's to build that list, whether it's to engage in the school or not, and whether or not you decide at the end of the time to go there. So all of the things that you learn are going to be important. And there are going to be some surprises at some point. I've had students go to schools and they were in love with it by the virtual tour and all the other things, and then they got there and they realized, this is not what I was surprised to see this, or I was surprised to learn that they only have classes with adjunct professors who are not there. How many classes are taught by adjunct professors? Adjunct, for those of you that may not know, is not a full-time professor and may not be on campus full-time. And adjunct could very well be a graduate student that is not a professor at all. They're a graduate student. They're getting their grad degree. So that might surprise you how many classes are taught by adjunct professors. I'm going to be blunt with you. If I was paying $70,000 a year for my son or daughter to go to school, and the majority of their classes in their freshman and their sophomore year were taught by adjunct professors, I'd be very disappointed, because if I'm paying that much money, I would want my son or daughter to have professors that are teaching the classes. So again, just surprises, things to ask for. And look at the bottom line. Again, sometimes kids are like, well, that's the best school, and I have to have a name brand school that people have heard of. And that's another thing that kids are like, nope, I won't even look at it. I'm like, but you may not look at it, but at the end of the day, it could be one of your best schools. Another parent that contacted me recently, they applied to a school that I had recommended, and they did not have it on their radar. It was not a school that they really thought about, but I knew that the school gave merit money. I knew that the school had a phenomenal major with what this child wanted, and I knew that she would be admitted. So they applied. She got in, and now she went there, and she was really surprised of what it was and how many classes were. She didn't know the school before she applied. I lost my train of thought and I apologize. I'm just going off memory here. But anyway, she ended up thinking she was going to take this school's offer until she really sat down and talked with other people and thought that maybe that school might not be for her. And it was based on, again, sorry, not race, but ethnicity, sorry, where the students were from. The student was from a foreign country, and it so happened that this school didn't have a lot of students of color, and they ended up not having it, not liking it. But so again, doesn't match your expectation. It was their surprise when you go visit, important things to go look at. Okay, I think that was it. And I apologize, I lost track there. Keeping track, organize it, put it in a spreadsheet. Where did you go? Anne and Jeremy really had a great spreadsheet, and they based it on many different things. They based it on cost and location and all kinds of things. So depending upon what spreadsheet, but they also made a spreadsheet of how many essay questions they were going to have to ask, what were the deadlines, what were, Jeremy, help me out here. I know your spreadsheet had a lot of information on it, and you and Ann and Ava did it together. Can you help me out there?
Yeah, I mean, how our daughter felt about the school in general was a key factor. Cost was a key factor. Having all the deadlines in one place was a key factor because you have not only the application, but financial aid. If certain scholarships have separate applications within the schools, having links to, the tours when we were going to be doing tours for the places, just any piece of data that you have about a school, it's helpful to have it in one spot and then be able to compare that across the schools at one time, because it's really hard to keep track of it otherwise if you have, this school over here, that school over there. It's really having one organized sheet. And I'll send out an example of what we used for everybody after the presentation tomorrow with the other information that we'll send out. So you'll see what we had, and hopefully that will help you with your organization, because it really is a lot of data to keep track of. Even if you're just applying to 5 to 10 schools, there's a lot to really try and keep in one spot and keep on top of mind. So
Yeah, this is excuse me, applying to college even 10 years ago wasn't as detailed as it is now. The amount of data to keep track of, it's important, and it's important for your son or daughter to know what their emails are. Sometimes, and even in my class, I kind of tell kids this: you might want to have them set up a separate email, totally separate, just for colleges, because then they know where that email came from. So, because a lot of kids have, their email, some kids don't even look at it, which, quite honestly, that's the only way a college is going to get in touch with a child. They're not going to reach out via Messenger or through Instagram or any other way. They are strictly going to email them. That's how they're going to do it. So your son and daughter need to learn how to use email correctly, because I can tell you a lot of kids don't know how to write a professional email. They don't teach them that in class. I wish they would, but they don't. If they're getting a text from a school, don't reply with all lowercase. They need to be respectful of what it is. They're interacting with a college, not their best friend. So these are important things. But if they want a separate email strictly for college, that way they know that they visited that college. They know the college has their email. It might be a really great thing to do. I've had students do it. I've had students not do it. But sometimes they miss an email, a very important email saying, we're missing something. We're missing a piece of your application. Or here's another one, great example. Student emailed me a couple years ago and said, I never heard back from Penn State. And I'm like, well, that's odd, because you should have heard from them by now. I said, are you sure? And he goes, no, I never heard back from them. Well, come to find out, he didn't keep track of the forms that they sent in, and they kept emailing him saying, you're missing this document, you're missing this document. Well, by the time he realized he was missing this document, then and mom and dad, if you call, I assure you, they're not going to give you any of the information. They're only going to give it to your son or your daughter. So make sure that your child is keeping up with their emails. And anyway, long story short, with this young man for Penn State, it ended up hurting his chances to get in, and he ended up getting denied. Now, I don't know if he got denied because he didn't respond to any of their emails saying he was missing information, or if his application ended up getting completed later than it should have. I can't tell you. I can only tell you that he did not see this email. So important. And again, I know the kids get tons of them, but they just need to keep track of it. One other reason why you don't want mom and dad's email on there, because they're going to know. They're going to immediately know this is not a child's email. They're going to know they're just going to know. So I can promise you, I set up a uh, common application email every year. And every year I have to set up a new email and a new name, because all the years I've been doing this over the past 25, 30 years, they've caught on to all of the different names that I use. So this year I'm got to figure out what name and what email I'm going to use. But you just know that sometimes they know you have, when you fill out all the information of who you are, they're not going to email you important information like they are your son or your daughter. So emails, again, one of those things that's going to be important. Specific data. Okay. There is a form called the self-reported academic record form. It is a data form that the kids have to fill out. This is a very important form. It replaces a transcript in some cases. So the college will make a decision based on how that child fills out this data form. So again, this data form is important because it's going to say received, uploaded. It's going to say incomplete. It's got a lot of data on there. So all of these things that your child needs to keep track of. And I get it. I'm overwhelming you a little bit, but that's why it's important to sit down when the Common App opens and they start doing everything to organize it, keep it in a place. When the kids are in the class that I run in the summer, I give them a binder. I give them tabs in the binder. This is what you got to keep track of. This is where you are. This is what you have to do. Open the binder, look it up. There it is. Did you do this? It's got a checklist in it. So all these things that, that we're giving to you here, you can certainly keep track of it and do it for your son or your daughter. However, I really feel it's most important for your child to keep track. They're the ones that are going to college. And it's important for them to do this interaction and for them to read their emails and for them to take charge in this process. Obviously, mom and dad, you're taking charge with where are we going? You're probably setting some limits on finances. You're probably setting limits on the distance that they're going to go. So that's, it is a two-way conversation. When my daughter was filling out applications, I was the college counselor at her high school, and that was a huge argument. Every night we'd sit down, or not every night. I suggest mom and dad pick out one night a week and tell your son or daughter, okay, it's every Sunday night between 7 and 8 o'clock, or whatever it takes care of, and you sit down and discuss it, right? Because if you discuss it 7 days a week, every day, and they're going to get overwhelmed. So, and that's what happened to my daughter. And again, I was the college counselor helping all of her friends, and my daughter would come home and go, I'm not talking to you about college. I'm not talking to you about college. So, and she would also tell me, you don't know what you're talking about. Mom and dad, if you get that, just take it with a grain of salt, because you know what? Sometimes they think you don't know. And here I was helping my daughter's friends, and she's telling me I don't know what I was talking about. So these are all the things that you're going to experience. It is what it is. I can't take that away. And it's just part of the process. If you've been through this process before, then you'll know. If not, then I'm giving you a heads up that this is what's going to happen. And that's why it's so important to sit down and keep track with things and help your son or your daughter along the way, because they're going to need it. Even though they tell you they're not, they're going to need it. And at the end of the day, who's paying the bill? And that's what I tell them. And during my class, I tell these kids, I sit down, I look at numbers, and I'm like, Maryland's going to cost your mom and dad $100,000 for 4 years. And that's if you graduate in 4 years. And you better be kissing their feet because they're paying $100,000 over 4 years for you to go to college. So believe me, I'm lecturing them too, to tell them how lucky they are. And I also try to advise them about how many loans they need to take out and that type of thing. So money is a factor that we talk about during the class, but I also make sure the kids know that it's important to communicate with their parent. And when I set up meetings, a lot of times the kids walk away and they go, yeah, that's what my mom and dad said. And I'm like, yeah, well, they know what they're doing. So, you know, again, I'm happy to answer emails. I'm happy to help you, happy to set up an initial visit or initial meeting and answer questions that you might have individually for your son or your daughter. But that's keeping track for both of you is going to be important. Okay. Um, Here's the other thing. I've been through this, mom and dad. And again, it's stressful. I'm not going to lie. It is stressful from the time it starts till the time they walk out the door and you pack the bags and they're on campus. And it is stressful. It just is. The more you can do to eliminate some of that stress by talking about it once a week or setting aside a time. But when you go to visit these schools, it's fun. It's really fun. Even if you're visiting your alma mater, I'm sure you're going to see buildings there that weren't there. When you go on campus, you can think, oh, they didn't have this, or oh, look, they have a new club, or oh, look, this is where we ate every day after, classes or went. But enjoy it. Go to the little town, find a great restaurant, walk around, enjoy it. Take some time away from not just visiting schools, but have a fun time while you're doing it. I bet you're gonna, if you're on a time schedule and you must be to you're seeing 5 schools a day, that's a lot. So take time, enjoy it, look around, have your child sit in the middle of the campus and say, do I belong here? Can I see myself here? Do I really like it? Have fun. Just let them enjoy every minute of it. Okay. And you as well, mom and dad. It's fun to go. I love going to see college visits. I honestly wish I could do more now than when I was in a college counselor at school. Sometimes I just don't have that luxury. But when I go on vacation, I always try to find a town or somewhere I've never been that there's a college so I can always visit it. Because I like to be able to visit schools so I'm able to go back to a student and say, it's like this, it has this, this, and this. So again, have fun with it, try to make light of it. And just know that at the end of the day, every student finds a college for them. There isn't a school that's not right for a student. So it's just a matter of finding the right school and finding the right fit. And at the end of the day, every student goes to college, everyone. It just, you got to make it so you find the right school and the schools that are going to admit them, but every student finds a college and they end up going and having a very successful life. So it just, like I said, do all the homework and all the things that you can do now. So when you get to this time, because May 1st is decision time, there's some factors in there, but the majority, I'd say 90% of the senior class right now are finally making decisions of where they want to go. Ivy Leagues come out next week. Ivy League decisions come out next week. I'm sure a lot of kids are waiting to see if they've been admitted to some of those schools. But by May 1st, your child has to make a decision of where they're going. So on or before May 1st. So you got some time here. We've got almost a year before your child finally makes a decision. But the earlier you start, the better off you're going to be, and the more prepared you are, and not stressed, the better off you're all going to be. So I think that's it. I think that's it for what I have, Jeremy. We can move into the question and answer period.
Yep.
Go ahead. Jeremy. I know there were some questions regarding that Jeremy sent me. Are they still, do I still need to answer them about financial
Yeah, I
need?
would say questions about how do you determine whether or not a school will give out merit aid?
Okay, so here is the best way for you to find out. Every college, every school in the United States has what they call a net price calculator. This will be on the information that Jeremy sends out. In that net price calculator, you will enter your child's GPA if they ask for it. You'll enter their test scores. Um, you'll enter your income. You'll, whatever it is on your adjusted gross income on your income tax. They will ask that. They will come back with a number that says, this is what your estimated contribution is going to be. That's the best way to know. Any school that tells you they are need-based school, anyone, we base financial need or financial aid on need, okay? That's based on a parent's income. And I will tell you right now, if that's what they're telling you, they're 99% of the time, do not give out merit aid. There's not one selective school that I know of that gives out merit aid based just on merit. So if you're looking at those top tier Ivy League schools, Johns Hopkins, they don't give out merit aid, because here's the thing. If they gave out merit aid to one student, they'd have to give it to all of them, and they just don't have that. Now, I'm going to back that up with when my daughter went to school, there were a lot of scholarships for sophomores, juniors, and seniors, a lot that were offered to students at that school. There was also a way for her to be a resident advisor, which meant she got her room and board for free. So that reduced the cost as well. My daughter wanted to study abroad. There were grants available for her to study abroad that did not come out of the tuition that I paid. So look for those when you go on campus. A lot of those scholarships will be posted on the bulletin boards and the message boards that they have. So another way to look at that. Some schools, Florida schools, I just found this out recently, that if you have a grandparent that lives in the state of Florida and your child can apply by a certain deadline, they can apply for in-state tuition based on the grandparent information that they live there and they live there full time, and this is not a second home for them. So there are some quirks. There are some schools that have what they call an academic common market, which means that you will pay. South Carolina is one of them. They have two majors that they offer, only two different majors within the academic common market. And your child has to remain in one of those majors for all 4 years and graduate with that degree from that, with that major. If they don't, then they take away this in-state tuition. But some schools you could get in-state tuition because you are pursuing a specific major. And that also helps. So there are some exceptions to the rules, but you need to find out what scholarships the school has. A lot of them will post it, and the best way to find it is to go to the school's website, look under financial aid, okay, and look at school scholarships. Boston University has one, the President's Scholarship. You have to apply by a certain time. You have to get interviewed, and you have to write a pretty big essay. I believe it's between 500 to 1,000 words. So yes, they're out there. But the best way to find out how much a school is going to cost is through that net price calculator. I hope that helps.
Yeah, and I would also just add, you can start looking for external scholarships now. You don't need to wait till the
Right.
fall or after you've applied. It's really good to do your due diligence now because you're looking for organizations outside of the school that your student aligns with, or maybe that, your workplace or your church or other community groups. And a lot of those are going to require you to also write an essay, that shows the alignment with the organization. So, doing that work now, you don't want to be trying to do it after you've gotten the bill or the financial aid letter from the school and your child's gotten in.
Right,
It's really helpful to have that sort of stuff done now versus, waiting until the applications have gone in. So,
right. And again, we'll send out some resources for that. Okay. Any other ones, Jeremy?
I think we covered everything else. So,
Okay. All right. And if anybody else has a question, now would be the time. Um, I think, yeah, Jeremy, I'll let you follow it up.
okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We really appreciate you being here tonight. I hope we found this helpful. I'll be sending out the recorded link tomorrow along with all our resources for you. If you do have any questions following up, feel free to reach out to Linda or myself. We're always happy to answer those questions and help you on this journey. And have a great night.
Thank you.